Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 14.7. There was like a slight B patch. They nerfed Yone. This released last night, so this is hot off the press. They also adjusted Blue Kale, and they also buffed Bard a little bit because he was feeling a little useless. Most importantly, they removed Twin Terror 1 and 2 for the rest of the set. But getting back into the tier list, we have Shen and Senna at the top still. We have Kai'Sa, Bruiser. Kai'Sa got buffed a bunch, and the Bruiser comp just makes a lot of traits activate without having to do too much. And then Fast 9ing is still pretty good with Fortune. Next up we have Yone Reroll. It's still very good. If we look at the data, he's averaging a 3.5 at 3-star. If we compared that to last patch, it was 3.35 before, so it's still extremely good. If we compare him to all the other 3 costs, he is still the best carry 3 cost at 3-star. So the nerfs were pretty fair. They didn't completely kill the comp, which is very nice. Duelist Reroll, very strong too. Aphelios, very powerful as well. We just saw kind of where they stood before. Kog'Maw Reroll, they actually nerfed Kog'Maw, but the nerf didn't go through until the B patch. So that's where they are right now. Ethereal, Blade, Shen, incredibly powerful stuff. We'll go over how to play some of the hero augments, Storyweaver, Bard. It's back. Not completely broken, but it's pretty good. Lillia Invoker, a 4-cost comp, Dryad Reroll, Arcanist Warden, Ghostly 4-cost, Mythic Bard, Alune Reroll, Lux Reroll, and Umbral Yone. Lux, they did remove Twin Terror, but I think you could still play her in a non-Twin Terror comp. It is a lot worse though. Next up we have is Kobuko Lucky Paws. This was completely broken, but they fixed it in the B patch, built different, mediocre. Inkshadow Kai'Sa, it's decent, but like you might as well play Kai'Sa Bruiser unless there are incredible Inkshadow items to kind of get. Storyweaver Reroll, and then Kha'Zix to kind of round it off. But let's get right into the list of how to play everything. So first up, we have the Shenna build. Nothing changed here. You just go Ghostly, itemize Shen up, and then itemize Senna. Before you get to level 8, you just want to play 4 Ghostly, so you just play the team you see here minus Morgana and Kayn. Senna can also use all sorts of different items. She could use like a Rage Blade, she could use like even a Spear of Shojin, she could use a Death Blade, she could use a Runons, like literally any item works on Senna, like Infinity Edge, Guard Breaker, things like that, like Red Buff. Just put any 3 items on her, and at 3-star she'll be deleting a lot of units. Shen, you definitely want like 1 Stone Plate. 2 might be a little overkill. You could do something like a Bramble Vest, you could do like a Dragon Claw. Like he benefits a lot from having a lot of resistances, especially armor, so Bramble is probably like one of the best items if you can't get like a Stone Plate. And then after you get at least 1 resistance items, you want to stack it up with like some health regen, so Declaw or Redemption. Steadfast Heart is pretty decent. Protector's Vow is really good too because it gets him to cast faster. Protector's Vow, probably very underrated item on Shen. But you just follow 2 cost reroll, just roll a bunch on level 6 and you'll be good to go there. Next up we have is Trick Shot Bruisers. So you play 4 Trick Shot and 4 Bruisers. And then if the Inkshadow item is good, you add in an Inkshadow. Doesn't have to be Udyr because he's a legendary. It could be something like a Volibear or even like a Jax. Just literally any trick shot unit will do. A great item holder for this comp is going to be Senna. Senna is going to be an Inkshadow, and then you could go like snipers into trick shot later on. But it's a very strong comp right now, probably one of the best ones because they buffed all the Inkshadow items, and then Kai'Sa is just very strong too. They buffed Kai'Sa like a tiny bit too. Actually, they buffed a lot about this comp. Xayah got buffed too. She's no longer a completely useless unit, although she isn't like the best legendary or anything like that. But just go standard leveling for this comp, go fast 8, roll down. You don't need Xayah, so play Bard instead of her if you can't find her, because obviously finding legendaries are pretty difficult right now. Or actually all the time, not just right now. And then put all your tank items on Galio. For secondary tank, it could be either Udyr or Sylas, depending on who you have and whoever's 2-star. But that's probably like the quickest rundown of the build you could ever get. If you want more details, head on over to bunnymuffins.lol. We have like a bunch more item recommendations. We have like a how to play section, and we have like more augments that are kind of listed out here. But all that info will be on bunnymuffins.lol/meta, where we update this every single Friday. Next up we have is Fast 9ing and 5 cost. Very strong build. You play Fortune, or you just like have a lot of win streaking early on. You have a lot of health and you're able to kind of just get to level 9 really easily, or you have something like Loot Subscription as the portal. There's another one that gives like a ton of gold every single stage. I forget what they're called. But if you get any of those portals and counters that give you like a ton of gold, or if you just have like a ton of health from win streaking, definitely consider going fast 9 because this comp is very consistent. A lot of people, they're going to contest your 3 costs, they're going to contest your 4 costs, but no one really contests 5 costs that much because you could go for any of the 5 costs as your carries. My favorite right now is Aurelia. Hui is pretty good, and then Wukong, Udyr, Set are great in the front line. After that, you want to drop in some Dragon Lords, so like Lee Sin, Diana, pretty good. Lee Sin also gives Duelist with Aurelia, so it's like a good default go-to. Ornn is really nice because he gives items to people, and when you have 2-star legendaries, like obviously those items are going to be worth more on a legendary than it would on like a Jax, for example. So that's why Ornn is like the preferred 4 cost. But you want to get to level 9, earliest, maybe like stage 4-5. Most of the time it'll be on like stage 5-1. And then latest, maybe like stage 5-2. Really good with Fortune though. You could play Fortune during stage 3 or stage 4 to kind of help you build a big economy into it if you don't get one of those portals, but overall very solid comp. Next up we have is Heavenly Yone. This one you just play Reapers and Yone. That's really all there is to it. Probably like the best version of the comp. Item builds, Titans I think is mandatory. It's the best item on Yone. Bloodthirster very solid because he doesn't have any healing. But if you get a healing augment, you could forgo the Bloodthirster, go for another Titans, and then Quicksilver's good if you want to add a lot of consistency to the build. So with Quicksilver, you don't have to worry about nonsense happening, but obviously he is a bit weaker. So there's a trade-up to everything in life, right? Obviously, if you have a Banshee's Veil, that's going to be the best thing you could ever get because you just get an extra item on your Yone. So you could go like double Titans Bloodthirster or like triple Titans with the Banshee's Veil and you'll be like super good. But that's why you see on the augments here, we have Accomplice, which is really nice because you get a bunch of support items. And whenever you're running a 1 carry comp, let's be honest, Kayn doesn't really matter that much. It's really just Yone doing all the work. You want to support him as much as possible. And how do you do that? You get a bunch of support items. That's why we're running Heavenly right now. Heavenly is all just to buff up Yone just a little bit more every single time. And there are kind of 2 ways to play this. So obviously Yone's going to be contested. So if you can only get a 2-star Yone in a contested game, make sure you take 3 combat augments. But if you're uncontested, you could take 1 econ augment and then it kind of helps you guarantee him 3-star. And you'll do really well in those games. But there's so many times where I see a 2-star Yone top 4, and the way people do that is by getting triple combat augments. So you might notice like, hey, how come this guy was able to top 4 with a 2-star Yone and then like sometimes I have like a 3-star Yone and I'm not able to get it? Well, it might be because you have econ augments and they had combat augments. Combat augments very important on Yone. Like pumping up, very good. A healing one is good if you don't want to build Bloodthirster. Heavy hitters is amazing if you're able to get 3-star Yone. Getting an Ornn or Radiant item on him is fantastic. But yeah, overall very solid build still. Duelist reroll, probably one of my favorite rerolls right now. I just click all the Duelist units, get a locket from one of the support items, and then like you're more than chilling. And Tristana and Volibear extremely strong, and you get to cap out with Aurelia. If you look at like the Yone build, there's no real cap out to this. It's just Yone kills everything. But for 3-cost reroll from Duelist, you get to go really hard with the Aurelia. I'd argue that 1-star Aurelia might do more damage than 3-star Tristana. It's just the way life is, but you want to do a 3-cost reroll leveling pattern. Throw Titan's Resolve on Volibear. So what you can do is build a lot of Titan's Resolves in the early game and then flex between Volibear and Yone depending on who you get more of, and then throw random attack damage items on Tristana. Treat Lee Sin how you would treat Kayn, just put leftover items on them. And then if you get Duelist spat, like the standard way to play this comp is Diana, but you could even run Duelist Yone. Duelist Yone is absolutely incredible, but obviously you need one of the augments to get the +1 there. Next comp up we have is going to be Aphelios Reroll. Very strong build with Faded. Faded did get nerfed a bit, but I still like it a lot. Thresh gives less resistances, that's pretty much all they changed, but Aphelios still very solid, didn't really get touched that much. Any 3 items work on him. Like people prefer the Rage Blade, but it doesn't really matter that much. You just need 3 items on him and then 3 tank items on Thresh, get them to 3-star and you're gonna be good to go. Another great thing about this comp is that again, it's got like a late game insurance policy of if you get ability power items, you could throw them on Syndra. She's very solid still in the Faded build because you're not really going all in on Aphelios. You're really just sacrificing one of your unit slots to throw in an Ashe. And Syndra always worked in like a 5 Faded 2 Arcanist or 7 Faded 2 Arcanist build because you get Arcanist built in with Ahri. For linking units, Syndra and Set are going to be very powerful in the late game. Early game, you want to link the Yasuo and Thresh. Mid game linking is going to depend. I like doing Kindred and Thresh, but you could also do Aphelios and Thresh. It depends on who's upgraded and what items you have. If I have a lot of attack damage items, then obviously I want to link the Aphelios. If I have a mix of AP and AD items, I like linking Kindred because she gives attack speed, which helps everyone. But lastly, you also have the insurance of Set. Set gives a lot of power to your team because I think he gives like 45% lifesteal. Maybe that's with 7 faded. With 5 faded, you might only get 30%, but 30% lifesteal is a ton. And then you get, I think, 20% damage buff from Syndra. It's very good with Aphelios because he does so much damage that you just get a bunch of multipliers in the late game, and it's really, really solid. Just do 3-cost reroll for this build though. Focus on Aphelios and Thresh, but make sure you stabilize sometime in the early game around like stage 3-2 or 3-5 if you are getting low health. That means just like leveling up to either level 6 if it's 3-2, level 7 if it's 3-5, rolling down maybe like 10-20 gold to get Aphelios 2-star, maybe like a Thresh 2-star as well, depending if you have pairs. But if you're ever like lose streaking the entire early game, you need to do that to avoid bleeding out because health is so important in this comp. Next build up we have is going to be Kog'Maw Reroll. This build got nerfed a bit, but it's still pretty solid overall. Blue buff plus ability power on Kog'Maw is going to be what you need. Cho'Gath main tank, Malphite leftover tank items, or it could be Ornn. You don't need Malphite 3-star, he's kind of optional, but Cho'Gath 3, Kog'Maw 3, buff him up with Mythic, very important. Go for Behemoth. You could also go like 5 Mythic, but I think the Behemoths are worth a bit more because you really just need frontline for this comp. You don't really need anything else there. Do a 1-cost reroll for this build. So various specific instructions are found here. Build Econ interest throughout stage 2, roll to 30 gold at level 4 at stage 3-1, build Econ back up at level 5, and slow roll above 50 gold for 3-star 1-cost. After that, just level up, drop in other behemoths, and you're going to be good to go from there. Next build up we have is Ethereal Blade Shen. Very, very fun build. Lots of different things you could do. But pretty much you just run behemoth units with Shen. And if you get higher level, you could throw in like a Ghostly or something like that. But you really just need 3-star Shen, a bunch of tanks. You could add in Heavenly units as well because you have Heavenly here. Attack speed would probably be the best, so Wukong would be good. But just put a Rage Blade on Shen and then a bunch of damage items and then like 1 healing item if you don't have a healing augment. He will just mow through everyone. And Ethereal Blades, which is the augment they just added, it's a new patch that just came out, so the sample size is low, but like, here, let's look at last patch because they didn't even touch it there. 3.95, whereas the regular ones are 4.3. Let's look at diamonds so we get more games. Like, yeah, it's gonna be doing pretty well. 4.13, like, that's extremely good. It's because you get a 2-star Shen for free with the hero augment. So if you have any bit of items that work for him, you could even put a Bramble Vest on Shen. You know, you could do like Rage Blade, Bramble Vest, Giant Slayer, or something like that. There are a lot of ways this could work. But extremely good comp. Just get Shen 3-star. Yorick is really good to get if you're close to him, but if not, just level up, throw in other tanks instead. But it's an extremely fun build and augment right now if you have not tried it already. Next one up we have is Storyweaver Bard. Bard did get buffed back up to his previous levels, but the reason why they did that was because, as I talked about in the patch notes, Bard was falling out of the meta. Like, I really did not like him that much, but other people really did, so they're buffing him back. So he's kind of just decent, you know, he's not anything amazing in my opinion, but overall a pretty solid build if you get a bunch of Rage Blades early and you also get some Bards. It's not bad by any means, I just don't like the comp personally. Everyone has different tastes, but I've seen a lot of people use this to great success. But you need very specific items on Bard. Double Rage Blade, Gunblade is a must. There's like literally no substitute. Maybe like triple Rage Blade is a substitute, but like that's also really hard to get. And then you go for 2 3-star 3-cost, which is also really difficult. So I know it's difficult doing it with like Aphelios. I know it's difficult doing it with like Duelist, but for Duelist, getting both of them is great. You're not gonna like lose if you don't get both 3-star. Same thing with Aphelios Reroll, but with this Bard reroll comp, like I feel like if I don't have both Tahm Kench and Bard at 3-star, the comp just falls apart, because they really rely on each other. Whereas the other comps say like, don't rely on each other as much. That's why I think out of all the 3-cost reroll builds, this one's a bit worse, but it's still pretty solid if you're able to get it. Obviously, if you have like one econ augment, it makes it a lot easier to do, because just getting them to 3-star is just so important. Next one up we have is Lillia Invokers. I've actually been liking this comp a lot last patch, even though it wasn't that great. It's a great fallback because no one clicks Lillia, no one clicks Annie. And because of that, you get them for free in a lot of cases. And they both do pretty solidly. Like, you're not gonna win the game or anything, but you could use this to fast 9 with, and then with fast 9 you win the game. That's why I really like this comp. Azir's also like pretty good. A lot of people hate Azir, but I really like him. Maybe that's just a me thing, you know? Again, people have different preferences for different things. I undervalue the Bard comp. I might be overvaluing Azir, but the main part of this comp is gonna be Annie and Lillia. Literally no one plays these. I've hit Annie 3-star twice yesterday, just because no one clicks Annie. I wasn't going Invoker in either of those games, but it just goes to show that like literally no one clicks Annie, and she's a fantastic tank. And then Lillia is also pretty solid if you're able to get her for free. But just get mana item on Lillia, blue buff or Shojin. That's what I love about her too. Like, you could go either item. A lot of units, they really only care about one thing. So like Kog'Maw, you must have blue buff. Shojin's a lot worse. If you are going for like Azir, blue buff doesn't work, you need the Shojin. If you're going for like Lux, same thing, like she needs Shojin, blue buff, not that great on her, but Lillia could use either or. That's what I like about her. And then Annie uses any tank item. So this is like a great comp where you play it if you don't have like everything perfect going for you and you want to still do pretty solidly. Next comp up we have is Dryad Reroll. Kindred's actually pretty decent right now. I've seen her work in a lot of different builds. There's even like a ghostly Kindred build that I saw out there. I tried it once, did not work out that well, but other people have been making it work. It depends a lot on like the pacing of the game, but Gnar also pretty solid still. Great in the mid game. It's kind of hard to win with this comp I found, but this comp is really strong in like the mid to late game, but in the late game it kind of falls off a bit. Even with like adding Azir at the end of the game doesn't really help that much, but it's great for getting like 4th or 3rd in my opinion, and a solid comp if you get the right start for it. Because obviously if you get a ton of Gnars with good items or a ton of Kindreds with good items, you might as well go for it because it's going to be hard to go for other things. Next one up we have is Arcanist Warden. This is just going to be a Syndra Arcanist comp. There's not much value going deep into Arcanist. I've talked about this in the past, but it just doesn't give that much power to the trait, but it's great in like the mid game because you could get to the comp very cheaply. There are a lot of 1-cost Arcanists, there are a lot of 1-cost Wardens, so you could get like a base comp pretty easily and transition into it throughout the game. But obviously that convenience comes at a cost. It's like when you go to a convenience store, 7-Eleven, and you buy milk there. It's going to be more expensive there than at the supermarket or at like a Costco or something like that. The issue with Costco is that I have to drive to it, and there's not even one near me. I don't even have a car, so I don't even know why I said drive to it. But what I'm trying to say is other comps, they're much harder to complete because you need very specific units, but Arcanist Warden, you have a lot of replacements you can kind of shift in and out, because again, there are a lot of 1-cost Arcanists, lots of 1-cost Wardens, same with the 2-costs. But overall, pretty solid build. Just get blue buff on Syndra, throw some AP on her. Jeweled Gauntlet is pretty much mandatory whenever you're going Arcanist because you get a lot of free ability power from the Arcanist comp. So getting some multiplier like crit, very useful. For tanks, itemize whoever you have 2-starred. So if you have a 2-star Nautilus, obviously he's preferred over Illaoi and Amumu. But if you get one of these 3-star for some reason, obviously itemize them. If you had an early 2-star Illaoi and you have all your items on Illaoi, you don't really need to sell it and transfer it to Nautilus later on because Illaoi is more than good enough. It's kind of like the Ghostly build from before. It's like whoever you put tank items on, it's fine. Just like leave them there. Don't stress too much about like selling the unit and switching the items. I'd much rather spend my gold into like leveling up, go to level 9, add more legendary units. Next comp up, oh, speaking of Ghostly, we have the Ghostly build. Very flexible comp. Kai'Sa's obviously really good right now, but she's kind of contested. There's the Inkshadow people playing Kai'Sa, there's the Bruiser people playing Kai'Sa, so even though I love this build, this was like my bread and butter build last patch, it is a lot worse only because Kai'Sa is more contested. It's not because of the Ghostly nerfs. Well, I mean, they hurt a bit too, but if I am going to be playing Kai'Sa, why would I not play the Bruiser version instead of the Ghostly version? But it's a very solid comp. I like playing it a lot because I'm able to mix and match a lot of 4-cost units. Let's head on over into teamfight.lol, go to the team builder, and then go on 4-cost. So instead of playing like Kayn and Caitlyn, you could go like a 4 Ghostly version and play any synergies with your front line. So what are we missing? We're missing Arcanist, we're missing Bruiser, we're missing Sage, Trickshot, and Warden. So if we look at the 4 costs, we could run a lot of different stuff. First of all, like some people even use Ashe instead of Kaisa, so that's already one replacement. You could use Galio for Bruiser, but I much prefer Silas. Silas is a lot stronger than Galio in my opinion in this build. Kayn is a ghostly unit, you could use him. Kaisa we already talked about. Lee Sin can't really use. Lillia can't really use. Morgana can use. Nautilus can use. This gives us Warden. Ornn, great. It gives us Ornn, great. Gives us Behemoth before we hit Udyr. Silas we already talked about, and Syndra actually is usable as well with the blue buff and AP items if you get a bunch of that, because she's great single target damage, great complementary with Ghostly. But you can see already, we could use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We could literally use 9 out of 12 of the 4 cost units. That's absolutely nuts. What other comp can do that? Hint, probably none of them. And it's also really not item dependent at all. I've thrown all sorts of items on my Kaisa. I think Infinity Edge is going to be the most important one. But I played it plenty of times without an Infinity Edge. I could put a Rage Blade on her, Giant Slayer, Hextech Gunblade, Spirit Shojin, Last Whisper, Death Blade, Guard Breaker, Runon's Red Buff, Infinity Edge. Like, how many items did I just name there? Like 10 items. Very solid comp, very flexible. Throw the tank items on whoever. It could be Alawi, could be Aatrox, could be Shen. I like kind of spreading them out a bit to make sure they all live to apply the Ghostly thing. But overall, very decent comp and probably one of my favorites. Next up we have is Mythic Bard. It's just like a worse version of Bard, but you go heavy into Mythic. It has the same problems of needing the 3-star Bard and the 3-star Tahm Kench, but now you also need to find Hui. The only benefit of this comp is that you get a nice 4-cost carry. So in case you don't get Bard 3-star or Tahm Kench 3-star, and let's say you're contested or something like that, you could level up, throw in Lillia, and play around with her a bit to kind of help complement your team in the mid to late game. But 3-cost reroll, and then level up, get 2-star Lillia. That's really all you have to do there. Next comp up we have is Alune Reroll. Alune actually does pretty decently, but she's definitely much worse than the other 3 costs. If we look at 3-star 3 costs right now, she's like by far the worst one. But I think she has a good matchup against a lot of the meta comps right now. If you think about the Trickshot build or like the Senna build, they run a lot of units in the backline, especially Trickshot, right? And if you play her, she just hits the backline every time. I've seen a lot of fights where she cleans that way. But overall, there probably are better things to kind of go for. But if you get a bunch of AP items, you get a bunch of Alunes because she's literally uncontested, right? No one's playing this. And for AP items, I don't think there are many comps that utilize the AP items. It's mainly like a Bruiser-ish AD meta right now. So in the games where you get dropped a lot of rods, like what comp are you gonna go? Let's look at the top actually. No, maybe, no. It's too late to do Kog'Maw Reroll because it's stage 3. No. Yeah, you could do Lillia, not Dryad. Arcanist maybe. Ghostly, not really. Bard, no. So literally, like, we went through, what, like 10, 12 comps. The first one that could, like, use a lot of ability power items without being like a Kog'Maw reroll is going to be like Arcanist and then Alune. So it definitely is like a viable option. It's just that AP isn't very good right now, but it's a good backup option there. So like, don't sleep on some of these comps just because they're a bit lower on the tier list. Very solid stuff. My favorite, Lux Reroll. So Lux is very powerful with Twin Terror, but they removed Twin Terror for the rest of the set, so we're never going to see that again. But as I said in my previous video on the Lux comp, it works without Twin Terror. That's what I've been noticing. You just go like 4 Porcelain. If you get a bunch of Spatulas, 6 Porcelain is absolutely bonkers. And then going deep into Arcanist isn't bad either as like a backup, or you just run a bunch of legendary units. But just go 2-cost reroll, get a 3-star Lux, level up to level 7, roll down for a Mumu 3, Alawi 3. After that, level up, find Lissandra and Ashe, throw them in for 4 Porcelain, and run like Arcanist in the meantime. You could also drop in some Heavenly, so you could do like Nico for an Arcanist plus like some Heavenly units, and you'll be more than good to go from there. But very solid build. Now that Twin Terror's gone, I might just go at every game because a lot of people don't think it works without Twin Terror, but I really think it does. I checked the data on it. It's not amazing, but look at this. She's like the best 2-cost reroll as a carry. Shen is a little biased because he's played with Ethereal Blades. So obviously he's going to perform a bit better, but like it's doing better than Senna, which is one of the best comps right now. But obviously it's played a bit less, and Senna's very contested. People play Senna in a lot of random comps, like all the Inkshadow builds, or like people use Senna as an item holder. That's why it's kind of hard to play Senna, and the play rate is a bit deceptive, because if you look on everyone's board on stage 3, a lot of people have Sennas, even though they don't play them on their late game board. So you can't trust like play rate all the time. It's one of like the biases with data. But Senna, kind of hard to find because everyone's playing her early. I can promise you no one's using Lux as an item holder. So you always get her for free every game. And look at that, 3.78, that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. Obviously like low sample size because it's early on in the patch. Let's drop down to Diamond, and it goes down to like 3.89. But if you look at the comps ahead of her, it's like none of these interfere with her at all. And like no one's doing Nico, right? But yeah, I'm going to do an experiment this patch. I'm going to be playing a lot of Lux just to see what happens. And by the way, we will be updating this meta snapshot next Friday as well. Just because there was like a B patch, and just to keep everyone up to date. Next comp up we have is Umbral, Yone, and Alune. The 4 Umbral version of Yone is still pretty decent, but the Heavenly is a bit better, so I would focus more on the Heavenly build. But if you get Silas 2-star for free, then sure, why not play this build? If you get a bunch of Alunes, like complement them together, not that bad of a comp. B tier, we don't really need to talk about. Lucky Paws Kobuko, it's okay. This is like a solid build you could kind of try when you go for it, but it used to be OP, not OP anymore. It's just like pretty good now. Built different, not that great. Storyweaver Reroll, not that great. And then Inkshadow Kaisa, just play the Bruiser Kaisa. There's no reason to play this comp unless you get to like 7 Inkshadow and the items are really good. That's the only time you would kind of go for that. Kha'Zix, nah. All right, let's go back up to the top. So how are you gonna play the patch? Well, if I have AD items, I'm gonna lean into like Kaisa, Senna. Gonna be the best thing to do. If I have a good early game, Fast 9. If I need to stabilize with a reroll comp, like any of these 3 will do. Kog'Maw Reroll, I don't really play too much of this, but if I get like a ton of Kog'Maws early and I'm uncontested with like half a blue buff, that's when I'll try to go for this. I'm gonna try to play a bit more of the APs. Like Lillia Invoker I think has a lot of potential, same with like the Lux build. But obviously everyone has their own different tastes of like what they like to go, what they don't like to go. But if you stick with the S tiers, that's probably gonna be the easiest thing to do, and then branch out from there as you learn more and more about the patch. But that's gonna be it from me today. I'll be releasing like hopefully a couple more videos this week, but I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you all next time.